Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're just thrilled you're here because today's conversation is tailored specifically for you, the learner.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a student staring down a highly intimidating semester,
Yeah,
or a professional trying to pivot into a completely new field, or just someone fiercely curious about the actual mechanics of getting better at getting better.
right.
Our mission today is to unpack the science of transforming from an absolute novice into a world-class expert.
And to guide us on this journey, we are pulling our insights directly from organizational psychologist Adam Grant's, his really fascinating book, Hidden Potential.
Yeah, it's such a great source.
It really is. We're going to explore how profound academic and personal growth is genuinely achieved, and critically, why our society has been looking for potential in, well, kind of all the wrong places.
Which brings me to what might be the ultimate underdog story to kick this off. Let's rewind to the 1991 National Junior High Chess Championships.
Oh, I love this story.
Right. So try to picture the environment. On one side of the board, you have the defending champions, the Dalton School.
Okay.
This is an elite, highly funded New York City prep school. I mean, they literally had the chess equivalent of an Olympic training center. Kindergartners had chess baked into the curriculum.
Wow.
Yeah, and their star player was Josh Waitzkin. He's the actual kid the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer was based on.
Right. So a system perfectly engineered to identify, isolate, and, polish natural talent with limitless resources.
Exactly. And then, on the other side of the room, you have a team called the Raging Rooks.
The Raging Rooks.
Yeah, they were a group of middle schoolers from a public school in Harlem. They had essentially zero in common with their wealthy opponents. I mean, some of these kids had only learned how the pieces moved a year prior.
A year. That's nothing in chess.
Nothing. One of them learned by playing older guys in a local park. They didn't have a decade of private tutoring. In fact, they barely fielded enough players to even enter the competition.
Oh, meaning they couldn't drop any of their lowest scores like the bigger, wealthier teams could?
Precisely. Every single match was a do-or-die scenario.
So it is the classic David and Goliath setup.
Yeah.
The established titans against the absolute long shots.
But here's the reveal. At the end of that tournament, the Raging Rooks didn't just play well. They tied for first place.
They won.
They became national champions. And how they pulled off that impossible victory completely shatters everything we are taught to believe about talent, genius, and success.
Because it wasn't raw, innate genius that won the day. It was a radically different approach to learning and growth.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we look at the Raging Rooks, and we have to accept that we aren't relying on raw brain power or genetic innate talent to reach that level of mastery, what exactly are we relying on? Just sheer willpower?
Well,
Do we just grit our teeth, stare at a textbook, and force ourselves to be great through brute force?
it's a highly natural assumption to make, but no, it is not just willpower. It is about developing specific character skills.
Character skills.
Yeah, and the distinction between a trait and a skill is the foundational premise here. We tend to think of character as a fixed personality trait. Like, you either have a strong moral code, immense focus and discipline, or you simply don't.
Like it's baked into your DNA.
Exactly. But the research from Hidden Potential suggests character is actually a learned capacity to prioritize your core values over your base instincts.
Oh, interesting.
It's a muscle. It's a skill you can build through repetition.
So anyone can learn it, regardless of their starting line.
Precisely.
Yeah.
To prove this, the book references a landmark study of 120 incredibly high-achieving people.
Okay.
We're talking about Guggenheim-winning sculptors, Olympic swimmers, world-class neurologists. The researchers went looking for early markers of genius and were stunned to find that hardly any of them were child prodigies.
Really?
Yeah. Mozart, who showed staggering musical genius from day one, is the exception. He is not the rule, even though we treat him like the standard. Most of the sculptors in the study were never singled out by their elementary art teachers as having any special talent. Most of the top swimmers were completely average in their early years.
So they weren't freaks of nature, they were freaks of nurture.
That is a great way to put it. And if we want to examine the actual neurological and economic power of that nurture, look at the famous Tennessee kindergarten study conducted by economist Raj Chetty.
Okay, what did he do?
Well, they randomly assigned over 11,000 students to different classrooms.
That's a huge sample size.
It is, and decades later, Chetty analyzed the tax records and life outcomes of those same kids. He found something staggering.
What was it?
Moving a class of 20 students to a highly experienced, highly effective kindergarten teacher added roughly $320,000 to their collective lifetime income.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on the mechanics of that. How does your kindergarten teacher impact your income when you're in your late 20s?
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
What are they teaching them? Do they just drill advanced math into their heads at age 5 so they got a head start on engineering degrees?
What's fascinating here is it was the exact opposite.
Really?
The early cognitive advantages, the boosted math or reading scores from that great teacher, those actually faded over time.
Hmm.
By middle school, the other kids had completely caught up academically.
Oh,
The lasting impact, the actual variable that predicted their adult financial success, came down to subjective behavior ratings given by their fourth grade teachers years later.
behavior ratings. So the kids who sat quietly with their hands folded made more money. Because it sounds a little dystopian.
No, it wasn't about being docile. The teachers rated them on 4 highly active character skills.
Okay.
Being proactive, pro-social, disciplined, and determined.
Proactive, pro-social, disciplined, and determined.
Exactly. These kids had fundamentally learned how to take initiative when they were confused, how to collaborate with peers, how to resist environmental distractions, and how to persist through the friction of not understanding something immediately.
Wow.
Those 4 character skills mattered 2.4 times as much as their math and reading scores when predicting their future income.
That is deeply profound. I mean, the most valuable thing you learn in a classroom isn't the quadratic equation or the dates of the French Revolution.
No.
It's the fundamental skill of how to learn and engage with friction.
Yeah.
But, that raises a massive problem for you listening to this right now.
How so?
Well, if character and potential are learnable skills, you can't just look at a struggling student or look in the mirror when you're failing and expect to conjure those skills out of thin air. You need a structure to actually build them.
You do. You need what developmental psychologists refer to as scaffolding.
Like in construction,
Yeah.
scaffolding is that temporary metal framework that lets workers reach heights they couldn't possibly reach on their own. And crucially, once the brickwork is stable and the building can hold its own weight, the scaffolding is dismantled and taken away.
It functions exactly the same way in human psychology and learning. Scaffolding is a temporary support structure provided by others, a teacher, a coach, a peer, that helps you cross a specific cognitive gap in your own abilities.
And then it's removed.
Right. Once you've developed your own independent mental models, that external support is removed.
Which brings us right back to the Raging Rooks.
Ah, yes.
Their coach, Maurice Ashley, was an absolute master architect of scaffolding. When he started teaching this group of highly energetic kids in Harlem, he didn't sit them down and force them to memorize standard, repetitive opening moves.
Because he knew they would tune out immediately.
Exactly. So he built a radically different kind of scaffold. He taught them the game completely backwards.
Right. He bypassed the dense theory and started strictly with the end game. He started with checkmates.
Yes. He would place just a few pieces on the board, like a king, a rook, a pawn, and showed them how to corner the opponent.
That's brilliant.
By showing them exactly what victory looked like and felt like, he gave them a clear, undeniable path. He manufactured a win.
And once they experienced the thrill of a checkmate, they suddenly had the intrinsic will to learn all the tedious, complex opening theory that came before it.
Right.
Scaffolding isn't just about giving someone the answer or holding their hand. It's about tailoring the external support to deliberately bypass a specific motivational or mental roadblock.
Yeah.
Maurice Ashley saw that their roadblock wasn't intelligence. It was motivation and attention span. He scaffolded around it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Grant brings up the Tetris effect from trauma psychology to explain the underlying mechanism of how tailored support overrides mental blocks.
Oh, right.
The classic video game Tetris, the falling geometric blocks.
A global phenomenon, yes.
So clinical research demonstrates that having patients play Tetris shortly after a traumatic event can actually help block the formation of intrusive trauma memories.
Like the flashbacks seen in PTSD.
Exactly. Now, it doesn't magically cure the underlying trauma, but it works mechanically because playing Tetris occupies the exact same visual spatial circuits in the brain that those traumatic images are desperately trying to hijack.
That makes perfect sense.
The game acts as a highly specific external support that bypasses a specific neurological obstacle. Educational scaffolding works on that exact same principle.
It really does. It's a temporary external structure that perfectly counteracts the specific wall you are hitting.
Yeah.
And it is critical to realize that this support doesn't always have to flow downwards from an older coach or a master teacher.
What do you mean?
Sometimes the most powerful scaffolding is horizontal. It comes from your peers. Consider the historical example of the Golden 13.
The Golden 13. These were the first black officer candidates in the history of the U.S. Navy, right?
They were. During World War II, they faced immense, crushing systemic racism. The naval establishment fully expected them to fail their officer exams, which were notoriously brutal.
Yeah, they were set up to fail.
But these 13 men didn't respond by trying to bootstrap it individually. They didn't retreat to their separate bunks to grind through the textbooks in isolation. They engineered peer scaffolding.
But wait, how is peer scaffolding mechanically different from just forming a standard study group? I mean, students form study groups all the time and still fail.
It's a great distinction. A standard study group is often just several people sitting in the same room, independently highlighting textbooks and occasionally asking a question.
Right.
The Golden 13 utilized collective intelligence and divided the cognitive load. They chopped the impossibly dense curriculum into pieces.
Oh, I see.
Each man was assigned to master his specific section, and then critically, they had to teach that section to the other 12. They acted as temporary scaffolding for each other's blind spots.
Wow. So the immediate actionable takeaway for you, the learner, never study in a silo when you hit a wall.
Nope.
If you are struggling to understand a complex concept, staring harder at the page isn't the answer. Turn outward. Find a peer. Divide the cognitive load and force yourselves to teach the components to each other.
But naturally, this introduces a secondary challenge.
Which is?
Scaffolding is brilliant for getting you over an initial wall, and it helps you bypass a specific mental block. But actually, achieving greatness, moving from a novice to a true expert, requires thousands of hours of ongoing practice.
Right.
How do you sustain that momentum? How do you handle the long, monotonous road of daily execution without completely breaking down?
I am so glad you brought this up because I have a major bone to pick with the cultural obsession around the 10,000 hours rule.
Oh, the classic 10,000 hours.
We hear it everywhere. Mastery takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, which, frankly, sounds like an obsessive, miserable slog. Do we just have to suffer? Is the path to hidden potential just a marathon of endless, grinding misery?
It absolutely does not have to be miserable. In fact, the research clearly indicates that if it is a miserable slog, you are fundamentally doing it wrong.
Really?
Yes. The danger of relentless, monotonous practice isn't just burnout, which is the emotional and physical exhaustion of being overloaded. The hidden danger is what psychologists call bore-out.
Wait, bore-out? How is that mechanistically different from burnout? Because if I am forcing myself to practice complex calculus or run basketball drills for 6 hours straight, I'm not bored, I'm physically and mentally exhausted.
The symptoms can look similar, but the root causes are opposites.
Okay.
Burnout is a state of cognitive overload. Your battery is depleted from too much friction. Bore-out is a state of cognitive understimulation. It is the emotional deadening you experience when a task lacks novelty and meaning, even if it requires effort. When researchers studied elite, world-class musicians, they found they rarely practice obsessively in a way that leads to bore-out.
They don't?
No, they aren't fueled by a compulsive, grinding need to suffer for their art. They're fueled by what is termed harmonious passion.
Harmonious passion, I like that.
They derive joy from the process of discovery itself, rather than feeling crushed by the pressure to achieve an external outcome.
So how do you manufacture that harmonious passion when you still have to put in the grueling hours of repetition?
The antidote to the grind is a concept called deliberate play.
Deliberate play.
It involves taking the rigorous structure of deliberate practice, but intentionally injecting it with novelty, variety, and micro-challenges.
You know, this reminds me of Steph Curry.
Oh, yes.
Widely considered the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. But his trainer, Brandon Payne, doesn't just make Curry stand at the three-point line and shoot 1,000 repetitive shots until his arms fall off. He uses deliberate play. He utilizes a technique called interleaving.
Interleaving is incredibly powerful. It's the practice of alternating between completely different skills rapidly, rather than practicing one skill in a block.
Exactly. Curry will switch between a highly technical shooting challenge, immediately transition into a neurocognitive reaction drill with flashing lights, and then switch back to a completely different type of unbalanced shot, all within 20-minute intervals.
It's intense.
It is. The neurological reason this works is that interleaving forces the brain to constantly retrieve information anew, which strengthens the neural pathways much faster than mindless repetition.
Right.
Plus, Curry is always competing against his own past metrics, not other players.
Yeah?
He's gamifying his own growth. It prevents that dreaded bore-out.
And we see the exact same neurological principle utilized by Evelyn Glennie, the world-renowned percussionist.
Oh, yeah.
She treats routine like a hostage situation.
Mm-hmm.
If she is trying to master a highly complex rudiment on the marimba and she starts to feel the onset of bore-out, she doesn't just grit her teeth and strike the same wooden keys.
What does she do?
She changes the sensory input. She will walk over and practice that exact same rhythmic rudiment on a snare drum or even a different surface entirely. The novelty of the new instrument tricks the brain into staying highly engaged.
And we don't just see this in individual elite athletes or musicians. Entire educational systems have proven this works at scale. Look at Finland.
Finland is perhaps the ultimate macro example. They consistently produce some of the highest achieving students on the global stage, and they do the exact opposite of the grueling, test-heavy, anxiety-inducing grind we are accustomed to in other nations.
Yeah, they refuse to test their kids to death. In fact, the Finnish government actually mandates play in the Common Core curriculum.
Mandates it.
There's this brilliant example in the book of a Finnish kindergarten where the kids play in an elaborate imaginary ice cream shop.
Right?
They are running a business, buying and selling imaginary ice cream with fake money. It looked like chaotic fun, but while they are playing, they are subconsciously mastering math, verbal negotiation, and pro-social collaboration.
This highlights a crucial directive for our listener. You have to actively shape your own study environment to include variety, novelty, and play.
You really do.
If you are just staring at the exact same textbook, sitting in the exact same chair for 6 hours, you are practically begging for bore-out. You have to change the sensory input. You have to interleave your subjects. You have to change the game.
Okay, let's tie all of these threads together. We've redefined potential as learnable character skills rather than innate traits.
Right.
We've explored how to seek scaffolding to bridge our cognitive gaps. And we've learned to replace the miserable grind with deliberate play. How do you, the learner, actually execute this on a Tuesday morning? How do we turn these psychological concepts into concrete daily habits?
Well, Hidden Potential offers some incredibly actionable habits, and the first one is going to feel deeply counterintuitive, especially for high achievers.
Lay it on me.
You need to establish a mistake budget.
A mistake budget? You mean intentionally planning to fail?
Precisely. Take Benny Lewis. He's a highly successful language hacker whose entire career is built on becoming conversational in new languages in just a matter of months.
Okay.
When he starts a new language, he completely discards the goal of perfect grammar. Instead, he sets a strict daily quota. He actively aims to make at least 200 mistakes a day in conversation.
200. But the social embarrassment of that would be paralyzing for most people.
It would.
Most students are terrified of raising their hand and making just one mistake in front of the class.
And that fear is exactly what the mistake budget destroys. By setting a quota for errors, he is fundamentally rewiring his brain's relationship with failure. When you budget for failure, it ceases to be a reflection of your self-worth. It simply becomes a neutral data point. It desensitizes the amygdala's fear response. The fastest cure for the paralysis of perfectionism is to intentionally make more mistakes.
So for you listening, expect to stumble. Wake up tomorrow and make it a concrete goal to get something wrong. Because if you aren't making mistakes, you are staying inside your comfort zone, which means your capacity is not stretching.
Exactly. Now, once you make those mistakes and you inevitably get stuck, you move to the second habit, which leverages what psychologists call the tutor effect. We touched on this with the Golden 13. The absolute most effective way to learn a concept is to teach it to someone else.
Oh, the book cites this amazing study involving high school students who were severely struggling with math.
Yes, that one.
The researchers did not give them extra tutoring, which is what we normally do. Instead, they took these failing students and assigned them the task of giving motivational and academic advice to younger middle school students.
And the results were fascinating. The high schoolers' own math grades significantly improved.
Wait, really? Just from giving advice?
Yeah. The mechanism behind this is profound. When you are forced to explain a concept to someone else or guide them through their own struggle, your brain is forced to organize unstructured, chaotic information into a coherent narrative.
Right.
It exposes your own blind spots and dramatically boosts your self-efficacy.
So if you are stuck on a dense chapter in a textbook, do not just highlight it again. Find a classmate who knows less than you, or even just talk to an empty chair and force yourself to explain the concept out loud.
That's it. And the third daily habit addresses the reality of the plateau.
Okay.
What do you do when you have budgeted your mistakes, you've tried teaching it, but you are still completely stagnating? When you hit a wall, you have to embrace the active detour.
An active detour, so not just taking a nap or scrolling on your phone.
No, an active detour involves stepping away from your primary academic or professional pursuit to engage deeply in a completely unrelated, serious hobby.
Interesting.
Progress in learning does not happen in a linear upward slope. It happens in looping spirals.
Looping spirals.
Yeah. Sometimes, pausing your intense study of physics to learn how to play a difficult song on the guitar allows your brain to engage in subconscious processing. Furthermore, achieving a micro win in that unrelated hobby delivers a hit of dopamine that actually refuels your cognitive flexibility and frustration tolerance when you finally return to the physics textbook.
So what does this all mean for how we measure our own success? If progress happens in loops and involves making 200 mistakes a day, how do we know we are actually getting better?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have a fundamentally flawed habit of judging people and judging ourselves by absolute peaks.
Right.
We look at a final GPA, a standardized test score, or a flawless performance, and we assume that static number defines the entirety of a person's potential.
But it doesn't.
No. Economist George Bullman conducted a massive long-term study of high school graduates across the state of Florida, and he proved that absolute grades are a remarkably poor predictor of future life success.
The trajectory is what actually matters.
Exactly. Bullman found that students whose grades steadily improved from their freshman year to their junior year, even if they only moved from C's to B's, were significantly more likely to graduate from college than the students who coasted through with flat, consistently perfect A's.
Because college introduces novel friction. The students with the upward trajectory, the improvers, had learned how to overcome adversity.
Yes.
They had actively built the character skills, the discipline, the proactivity, the scaffolding.
Whereas the flat A students might have just been coasting on early cognitive advantages.
Right, but the moment they hit a wall they hadn't seen before, they shattered.
The delta, the rate of change, and the distance traveled from your starting point is a vastly superior indicator of hidden potential than the height of your peak.
So let's synthesize this entire journey. Transforming from an anxious novice into a master of your craft is not a matter of winning the genetic lottery.
Not at all.
It is not about possessing an innate, superhuman intellect.
It is about recognizing that your character, your ability to persist, to collaborate, to be proactive, is a muscle you can train.
Yeah.
It is about having the humility and strategic mindset to seek out external scaffolding from your peers and mentors when you cannot reach the next rung alone.
And it is about rejecting the soul-crushing myth of the 10,000-hour slog and instead transforming your practice into deliberate play.
Right.
It's about interleaving your studies so your brain stays engaged. And ultimately, it is about embracing the messy, awkward reality of daily learning, intentionally budgeting for your daily mistakes, teaching others to heal your own blind spots, and taking active detours to replenish your confidence.
Above all, unlocking your hidden potential requires a total paradigm shift in what you consider a success.
And that is the absolute most vital takeaway for you, the learner. Your potential in this life is not dictated by a bad freshman year transcript.
No, it's not.
It is not defined by a single failed certification exam or a complex concept you just couldn't wrap your head around this morning. The true scientific measure of your potential is the trajectory of your growth. It is the distance you have traveled.
We have to stop penalizing ourselves for messy, rocky starts and start rewarding ourselves for the resilience it takes to keep climbing.
And so we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over today.
Okay.
We have spent this entire deep dive exploring how the struggling novice, the underdog with a rocky start, can eventually overtake the natural genius by learning how to overcome friction.
Right.
But what if you have always been the prodigy? What if you are the student who has coasted on early cognitive advantages and flat A's, completely avoiding the messy friction of failure?
Ooh, that's a tough spot.
When you wake up tomorrow, what happens the day you finally hit a wall? You can't just effortlessly step over and you realize you never actually learned how to fail.
That is the ultimate trap of early success.
It really is. Remember the raging rooks? They weren't born grandmasters. We were just kids from Harlem who learned how to learn. Until next time, embrace the friction and keep diving deep.